Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Flash Season 8 review series. And today I am going to be talking about episode 18, The Man in the Yellow Tie, which I have just finished watching, and this episode was absolutely fantastic. I loved every second of it. It was great from start to finish, and there were lots of great callbacks to earlier seasons, like Season 1, there was a little bit of Season 2, there was even a little bit of Season 3, and a little bit of Season 5 as well. This episode had it all, and we got a couple of little surprises in this episode. One in particular I did not expect, nor did I see coming, which I'll talk about in a moment. And this episode really brought up a lot of questions. Some questions got addressed, some questions left us with more questions, and there was one question in particular. I wouldn't necessarily say we got the answer we were looking for. We kind of got the answer, but again, more questions than there was answers. And I loved it. It was really, really good. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is the first surprise of this episode was the return of Eobard Thawne. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Well, hang on a minute. Eobard Thawne's already back. He's locked up on Lian Yu on the prison on the island. Yes, that is true. Eobard Thawne is locked up. He has no speed. When I say the return of Eobard Thawne, I'm talking about the original Eobard Thawne with his real face. And Matt Lishner is back in the role of Eobard Thawne. Now, it's been a long time since we've seen him back on the show. I think the last time we saw the original Eobard Thawne, I'm going to say, is around Season 3 with the whole Flashpoint story arc, where Barry begged and pleaded Eobard Thawne to kill his mum to restore the timeline. And that was the last time we officially had seen him on the show. Of course, Eobard Thawne's been making the rounds. He was in Season 2 of Legends of Tomorrow, where he formed his own Legion of Doom with Malcolm Merlyn, Damien Dark, and they recruited a younger Snart before he became a legend. And they also had Mick Rory on the team for a little bit before he went back to the Legends. And also, we saw in Legends of Tomorrow Season 2, Eobard Thawne was wiped out from existence thanks to the Black Flash, so we didn't see him again. And of course he popped up again in Flashpoint in Season 3 of The Flash. And we also saw him make an appearance in Legends of Tomorrow Season 7, where he kind of became a good guy of sorts. He became more like the protector of time and history before he was unceremoniously taken out, and he left it to Sarah in terms of like handling the duties of protecting time and history. So he's been making the rounds, but appearances with Matt Leshner as Eobard Thawne have been very few and far between. So when I saw that the original Eobard Thawne was going to return for this episode, and it was going to be Matt Leshner, was very excited, and this definitely paid off. Now, before I give a quick recap, I'm just going to have a little chat about the name of the episode. Now, this week's episode was called The Man in the Yellow Tie. Now, this is very similar to an episode back in Season 1 called The Man in the Yellow Suit, which was one of my all-time favourite episodes ever of the show. And in that episode, Barry Allen was trying to figure out who this mysterious man was in the yellow suit, and why was he at his parents' house on the night that his mum was murdered. And, you know, you had that great chase scene where Barry was going after Reverse Flash, and they had that great big epic fight in the football pitch. Obviously, Barry wasn't fast enough to keep up with the Reverse Flash. Fantastic episode. Loved it. You know, one of my all-time favourites. Now, in this episode, especially with the name The Man in Yellow Tie, I would say it's kind of like a callback to the season 1 episode. Now, in this episode, Barry Allen is trying to figure out why Eobard Thawne is back with his original face and not the face of Harrison Wells, because I kind of feel that, we all love Tom Cavanagh. He's amazing, but there's no reason for Eobard Thawne to wear the face of Harrison Wells. It just never really made much sense to me, but I always put it down to the fact that maybe the producers just love the guy so much. Well, that's not a bad thing, but I've always hoped that we would see Eobard Thawne with his original face. So we kind of got that here. So, as I said, if the man in the yellow suit back in The Flash Season 1 was about Barry trying to figure out the identity of who the man in the yellow suit was and why he was there the night his mum was murdered, then I would say with this episode, the man in the yellow tie, Barry was trying to figure out why Eobard Thawne is back, and was he the same guy who murdered his mum and has caused him so much pain. Exciting stuff, absolutely exciting stuff. So I'm going to give a quick recap of what's happened, and then we're just going to get straight into talking about episode 18, because, as I said, this episode was fantastic. Definitely a big improvement from episode 17, although I did say in the last review that, it was a very mixed bag. There was some good stuff, and there was some stuff that I just didn't care for much, but this episode, I cared for it all, from start to finish. It was just absolutely amazing. So, what we've seen so far is Eobard Thawne, the one wearing Harrison Wells' face. He's locked up in prison on Lian Yu, and we have a new speedster, Mina Dorwan, aka Fast Track. Now, her speed is artificial, so she doesn't quite have the same speed as Barry Allen. Her speed seems to glitch, so sometimes she runs fast and sometimes she doesn't. So she's not able to control her powers. So she came across originally as a villain, but it turned out that it wasn't the case, that she just can't control speed. And Barry finally caught up to her and offered his services in training her to better understand her speed and get to grips with it. And that was pretty much how we ended episode 17. So we are now introduced to a new speedster, because we haven't really had a new speedster. I think the last speedster we had was Godspeed, but he was more of a bad guy. But, I did say before that in the earlier seasons I was kind of like burned out with speedsters, but it's nice to have a heroic speedster on the scene. So we've got another one who Barry is trying to mentor and help. So that's kind of what we saw at the end of episode 17. Barry just comes forward and says, listen, I can help you out. Maybe try and get you to learn how to control your speed better. And that pretty much brings us into this episode, episode 18. So, with that all said, let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into it. Let's talk about episode 18, The Man in the Yellow Tie. So this episode starts off with a voiceover from Mina. She's racing through the woods, and we see her declare herself as the fastest woman alive. And we see her running around the woods for about 3 minutes, and we see her training with the Flash as she's racing and trying to keep up with him. But she soon starts to panic and loses control and accidentally zaps the Flash with her own lightning bolt. We see the artificial lightning interact very strangely with Barry's own organic speed, and Mina, running out of time and speed, says she must go back to the lab. We then see Cecile is at the bank trying to make a deposit when suddenly there is a bank robbery, and she tries to go for her phone but ends up confronted by the criminal, and suddenly is overwhelmed with emotions to the point that she can see them and is able to deflect them and change their feelings with a wave of her hand through her eyes, which I found quite creepy. I'm not sure how this is going to play out, but it was interesting to say the least. I fully expected the Flash to make the save, but he didn't this time for some reason. Back at Star Labs, Team Flash runs some tests, and her empath abilities have boosted up to 1,000, and Team Flash has questions about why this is happening, and Cecile can tell Barry is worried about Mina. Barry goes to Fast Track Labs to see how her artificial speed force works. Mina shows Barry her device and introduces her to her colleague, none other than the man himself, Eobard Thawne. Now, this moment reminded me a lot of Daredevil Season 1, where Vanessa introduced Matt Murdock to Wilson Fisk, and you see like Wilson Fisk slowly come out in slow motion, and you just see the camera pan up to his legs until eventually you see his face. They kind of did that here, and I really got chills, and it was almost like time just froze, and the only thing missing was a line. I know they wouldn't use this line, but it would have been funny if, you know, someone done a meme and said, "I sense great disturbance in the force." I think that would have been just brilliant. So we see Eobard Thawne, not with Harrison Wells' face, but with his original face, and we learn that he has helped build this machine for Mina, and Barry understandably is shaken, and Eobard Thawne says, "Nice to meet you, Barry. I'm Eobard Thawne." And Eobard Thawne claims to not know the Flash or Barry Allen, and Barry, of course, says to him, "I'm a friend of the Flash, don't you know him?" And Eobard's like, "Am I supposed to know who the Flash is?" And so, "Don't lie to me. We both know who you really are." And it was just a great scene. I absolutely loved it. It was just a fantastic scene. And, you know, every time those two are in the same room, especially when it's the original's face, never gets old. We see Eobard Thawne explains that he has a rare form of retrograde amnesia and can't remember anything from his personal life from over a year before. When Mina steps out, Barry confronts him, but Eobard continues to act like he doesn't know him or remember anything of their dark and violent past. Great stuff this was. Barry calls Chester and there are no security alerts. Barry is confused and concerned, and we get a flashback to 1 year prior where we see Eobard Thawne is interviewed with Mina at Fast Track, but she thinks he is a joke until he ends up completing her formula for artificial speed. So it's kind of interesting. It looks like to me, obviously we'll get more as this episode progresses, we'll learn more about why this is happening. But it's interesting to see that there's an Eobard Thawne, the real one, out there, and the one wearing Harrison Wells is locked up on Lian Yu. It's quite interesting. Very, very weird. Meanwhile, Eobard Thawne, with the Harrison Wells face, is still in his cell on Lian Yu. This Thawne claims to know not what's going on and doesn't seem to care, and we see Barry yelling at him, trying to figure out why are there two Thawnes now, especially as Thawne was also almost erased in the Armageddon event. And we also learn his past was also erased, so this Thawne must be from another timeline. Thawne can confirm that Mina's device is the one that Thawne built in the future, and eventually the negative speed force will destroy her personality. Thawne also warns Barry that this new Thawne is only out for himself because that's what we Thawnes do best. After Barry leaves, we get a surprise, and we hear Eobard Thawne say, "You can come out now, John," and we see it's none other than John Diggle. Now, I did not know that John Diggle was appearing in this episode, and this really was a big surprise. This was probably the biggest surprise of the entire episode. Now, this scene with John Diggle was quite a good one because, you know, we've seen John Diggle, and I've talked about this in other reviews. You know, we've seen John Diggle ever since Arrow ended back in 2020. He's kind of been making the rounds. He's appeared in Superman and Lois. He's appeared in Legends of Tomorrow. He's already appeared in The Flash a couple of times. He's appeared in Supergirl, and he had a little cameo in Batwoman. So he's been making the rounds. And, you know, he more or less has said that he was offered an opportunity, but he turned it down. We don't know what that opportunity was, but we do know that it involved a box with something green in it. Now, myself and a lot of fans have been hoping that John Diggle will become the Green Lantern or reveal himself to be John Stewart. We've been hoping to see something here, but we've never really got the answer. What did he reject? Why has he been getting these weird headaches? Why has he been hearing these voices? We kind of get something here, but again, we get more questions than answers. But this is about as close to something we'll see, really, but I do believe it's not over yet. We see Diggle still can't get the box open, which he found at the end of Arrow Season 8 in the series finale, and he goes to Eobard Thawne to try and help him open it. Diggle's obsession with opening the box has also created issues with his family. Eobard Thawne agrees to help Diggle under the condition that he gets to see what's in the box. The Flash races back to Fast Track. Mina is preparing to juice up with more speed than ever. Flash shows up and stops her just in time and tries to explain that the negative speed force has evil effects, and even though Flash confronts Eobard Thawne, Mina still tries to power up. Flash tries to stop her, but it's too late, and a large dose of negative speed force impacts her personality and makes her crave more speed. Very similar to what happened to Excess back in Season 5. And we see she races off and starts absorbing more energy. Great stuff here. Meanwhile, on Lian-Yu, Thawne explains to Diggle that the cube only comes to those who are at a crossroads and that it closed because he wasn't ready. Now that he is, Thawne walks him through being able to get into the headspace to open it. It opens and we get this unbelievable montage of time and space, and these voices are more or less saying to John Diggle that he could lead thousands and thousands of people, and Diggle tells that he doesn't want it. He doesn't want what's offered to him because none of the offers lead him back to his family, and with that he decides that this is not for him, and he closes the cube and it throws it away, but before it can crash it just disappears, and we see Diggle has finally decided to give up his cosmic destiny to be with his family. Now, I'm not really sure what's going to happen from here, whether or not he'll become the Green Lantern. We'll just have to see, really. I know there's talks of him getting his own spin-off series where he's going to be training new heroes. Maybe something there might happen, but time will tell, really. But this was about as close to an answer we'll get. Might not be the answer we want, but it's probably the most we'll get for now. But as I said, time will tell. Back at Fast Track, Barry's speed is cancelled out. The Flash continues to confront Thawne and reveals that he and Mina are in love. It turns out that Mina changed his entire goals. He wanted to be a speedster like the Flash, but he ended up falling in love with Mina and his focus began to shift. He also explains that he gave the speed to Mina to save her from a heart condition. Thawne begs the Flash to save her, and the Flash realises that this Thawne is not the same man who murdered his mum. He in fact was a caring and a much better man than the monster he knows from the past. Flash's speed returns and they figure out where Mina is going to get more speed. She starts absorbing more speed at the dam, but the Flash shows up to stop her. They start to race so that the Flash can burn off extra energy so that she can absorb it, as calculated by Thawne. However, Mina grabs power directly from the negative speed force and cancels out the Flash's power. Thawne confronts her. He tries to stop her, appealing to her good nature, and it turns out to work, and the influence of the negative speed force leaves and returns back to where it belongs. Mina is back to normal, and Eobard Thawne comes through as the hero. Wow. Who'd ever thought that? Back at Fast Track, the Flash suggests that there is a way around the danger of the negative speed force. Mina just needs to use her love for Eobard Thawne as her lightning rod, just the same way as Barry has Iris as his lightning rod. Chester gets a message from Ray Palmer of the Legends of Tomorrow, who catches him up on the events of Legends of Tomorrow and how Eobard came to learn that history should not change. The Flash suggests that when Eobard died as a hero, he was given a chance to be a good person in the present. I can buy that. I was kind of hoping that maybe that the events of Crisis might have played a part with all of the Earths merged into Earth Prime, but I'll buy it. I can take that. In Central City, a guy tries to mug a woman and is suddenly overcome. We turn out to see Cecile out on the street using her powers, but she's observed by a mysterious figure. Caitlin calls Mark, who has figured out how to bring Frost back without the mirror gun. He just needs Caitlin. In Lian-Yu, Thawne reflects on his past confrontations with the Flash when he is visited by Dion from the Steel Force and the Cube having allowed Dion to find him. He says to Eobard Thawne, "It's time to fulfill your destiny." And that's how we end episode 18. Wow. Loved every second of this episode. Flash was in the lead, doing his thing, being a hero. Loved it. All Flash, the way it should be. I loved it. Absolutely brilliant. Thankfully, they did not push the Chester and Allegra will they, won't they. It's kind of put on the back seat. It was all Flash. Loved it. Eobard Thawne as a hero, never ever thought I'd see the day. Eobard Thawne with his original face, never thought I'd see that again. Two Thawnes coexisting, crazy. John Diggle appearing, didn't see that coming at all. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. One of the best episodes of Season 8. And definitely up there with the Armageddon crossover. You know, as I said, episode 17, mixed bag. 2 episodes before, episode 16, 15, episodes 18, the 5-part Armageddon special. Been brilliant. Absolutely been brilliant. And this one was just no exception. It's just fantastic. Loved every second of it. So, I'm going to wrap this up now. What was your thoughts on episode 18? Did you enjoy it? What did you think of seeing Eobard Thawne back with his original face and in love and actually helping Barry Allen? Do you think Eobard Thawne has changed? Do you think this is a new version of Eobard Thawne? And also, what was your reaction to seeing John Diggle appearing? Do you think we did get the answer about him possibly becoming Green Lantern? Do you think that's it now? Or do you think there's another twist in this very strange story arc that's going on with John Diggle and this mysterious box? And also, what did Dion mean by it's time for Thawne to fulfill his destiny? What could this mean? Could this tie into Iris being trapped in the Still Force? And also, how do you think Mark and Caitlin are going to bring Frost back without the mirror gun? Could there be repercussions? Could there be through cloning? Or there could be another way? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Flash Season 8 review series, where I am going to be talking about episode 19, which I am really looking forward to seeing, especially with the way this episode ended and, you know, the great role this half of the season has been so far. So I'm really pumped to see what's going to happen next. Should be a good one. So until next time, take care everybody and stay safe, and once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.